Today's knife review is on the KGO, the Kiwi General Outdoors knife made by Svord of New Zealand. It comes in a black leather sheath, fairly thick 3mm leather with 3 rivets just for safety, single stitched with a third piece of leather stitched into the middle between the two sides just to make sure that the edge of the blade doesn't cut the stitching. The back side of the sheath has a fairly straightforward belt loop, and as you can see, the knife is very well enclosed within the sheath. There's very little of it exposed, so it's highly unlikely you're going to lose your knife out of the sheath. The knife itself consists of a moulded polypropylene handle in bright orange with Svord's logo on the handle. And the blade is their usual high standard of high carbon steel. It's about 2.5 to 3mm the edge of the blade. It tapers ever so slightly towards the point, and it's flat ground down to the very edge, which has a rough convex grind down to the cutting edge. So that's the knife. Let's put it through its paces. Okay, we've put this knife through its paces now. On the whole, yeah, it came out very, very well. The first test, the carving test, perfectly adequate. I can't say much more than that. It did the job. It didn't do it exceptionally well, but it did it well enough. It's not the best knife for push cuts. It's not the best knife for fine work, but it deals with the heavier work, the points and things like that very, very well. Because of its size, because of the size of the handle, you've got a lot of area to create a lot of energy and a lot of power in the cuts. So for the bigger cuts it excels, for the more delicate stuff it's adequate. When we came to the chopping test, as you saw, it sailed through with a batten on the back. It's got a very, very fine profile. It's an excellent knife for chopping with a batten. However, again, the thin blade profile will damage your batten, so that's a minor problem there, but nothing that you wouldn't be able to cope with. Again, with the splitting, my only issue is the thickness of the blade. As far as splitting was concerned, the slight convex edge meant that the business side of the blade wasn't in contact with the wood, and it was just splitting it down the grain, and as you saw, it did that very, very effectively. I think on anything larger you would struggle, simply because the edge point of the blade is quite thin, so like the Mora 2000 you're doing a lot of damage to your batten while you're doing it, but it is capable of the task. And yeah, finally the feather stick, it excelled at that. It was a very easy knife to feather stick with. You can get a very keen edge on this knife, and with the blade being that little bit longer, coming in I think at 4 3/4 inches, It just gives you that little bit more blade length to use your other hand, almost like a draw knife, pushing it down. So yeah, it was very effective. I can't fault it. Very, very good knife when it comes to the feather sticking. On the whole, as an all-round general outdoors knife, it's great. You know, it does what it says on the tin. I don't think it particularly excels at any one thing, but overall, a very high quality knife. My only concerns with this knife is the aesthetics. I find the handle just that little bit too big. I think the big knob on the end of the handle is completely unnecessary and doesn't particularly add to the aesthetics. The sheath, again, I would have preferred it to have been in brown leather rather than black. It's a very good, sturdy leather sheath, and yet it almost seems cheap in the black. But that's just a personal taste thing, and I wouldn't have gone for orange as a handle either. I would have much preferred something a little more neutral than the orange. But apart from that, that's purely aesthetics. Like I say, as a knife, it functions perfectly well, does the job great. Okay, that's the Kiwi's General Outdoors knife.